Uh-oh. We're
Uh-oh.
jammed. We know we're not jammed anymore. We are live. Welcome to the podcast, The Millionaire of the Diamonds, where today is going to be all about great leaders are servants of mankind. And when they're not, you're going to hear a couple of stories. And I was just closing off a segment with Melanie that I want to share with her. This year, I really enjoyed in 2025 doing the homeless project because Chris was my partner in crime, where he really has it within him to service people. And we their boots, remove their socks, we put our socks. So it doesn't matter how high you go. Always remember, the more money you make, the more you have, the more you need to be humble. You're gonna love today's podcast. So once again, you know, you want more out of life. The Millionaire of the Diamonds is a transformational podcast where it's always going to be brought back to you. Who do you have to become to achieve your next success? And and it's so important because if you do achieve a next success without developing yourself as a human being, you're not going to be able to hang on to it. See, Melanie, you've been around so many years as a director because, even with a doctorate's degree, how many times did me and you go head to head? And I mean, you could have said easily, Maria, listen, Maria, listen. You don't even have a university degree. Who are you to tell me? Never, never, never. I mean, I never told Melanie, okay, girl, you need to see a psychiatrist. And it's this humility I've always loved about you, Melanie. Because a lot of people with titles like you, with training with you, having lived in 3 continents, being English, that in itself we say, oh, a little bit of snobism. No, no, no. Real leaders are humble. You know, they are humble and they are able to fight their point, but also when they realize that, maybe that could be a better way to have that capacity. Anyways, we're going to dive in today. And I want to just give a shout out to Sherry Novak for being a very humble leader and leader of being of service to her people. I know Kendra, she helped out Monique for the longest time after she lost Jimmy. But you know what? That will have gained her the director status because when you're servicing people without pay, that's what it comes down to, Melanie. Are you able to do what you do even without pay? So Kendra, Jennifer Morris, I laid it straight to Jennifer. I mean, she could have gotten really pissed with me and said to me, who do you? So I know they're all going to be extremely successful. So I'm very, very grateful to be in an environment where I continue to grow with the best amazing people you can possibly hang out with. So before we dive in, I want Marie-Pierre to help you share with everybody you know that is not humble. There we go.
Okay. Okay, Maria, restart your computer in the meantime that I do that because you're freezing. Like so restart the computer and I will talk about sharing. Okay, so it's okay. We can follow what you say, but it's like oh no. We can do it. Okay, so let's start to share. So you have the text in the comment that you can copy paste when you share the podcast this morning. So when you share on every social media platform, people understand why they should listen to the podcast this morning. So you click on the arrow just beside where you write your comment so you can share everywhere. And also when you have someone in mind that when you're listening to the podcast, or maybe already because you know the subject, you can send it directly one by one. So for everyone, you can send it by messenger, you can send it by text message. So for those people that want to make sure that they will listen to the podcast this morning. And then we have our contest, Les Millionnaires des Diamants. So first, when you go on our Facebook group, Les Millionnaires des Diamants Inspirational Group, every time that you post, every time that you comment, every time that you react on the group, it's a community group. So everyone can participate. And at the end of the month, the official top 10 of people that contribute the most on the group get a voucher to go shop on the boutique Les Millionnaires des Diamants. And then we have a draw at the end of each month. So at the end of the month, how to be in the draw? There's two ways. First, with the boutique Millionnaires des Diamants. So when you go on the boutique and you place an order, take a picture, and when you receive your order, take a picture and post on social media, and always tag Les Millionnaires des Diamants to be in the draw at the end of the month. And the second way, same thing, but with the books Les Millionnaires des Diamants. So when you receive one of the books, make sure that you take a picture. You're reading one of the book, again, take a picture. And then you're doing one of the quiz book, you take a picture. You're doing one of the workbook, you take a picture. You're doing something with your agenda, you take a picture. So that means you can have a new picture every day to post on social media, and you can tag Les Millionnaires des Diamants at the end. So make sure that you are in the draw. And last thing you want to do is to get your ticket for the next conference. So we have two conferences coming up. So make sure that you go and click on the link to be with us. It's a virtual conference, so that means that you can be with us from all around the world. Oh, no, okay, feedback. Okay, so that's good. That's me. I'm trying to bring back Maria at the same time. Okay, so we're gonna be good after that. Okay, so yes, for everyone, it's a virtual conference. That means that you can be with us from all around the world. But for those that is close to the studio in Anjou, when you get your ticket, you can send me a message if you want to be in the studio with us. We still have some places, so just send me a message and I will add you to the list. So voila.
We're ready to rock and roll. Am I better? Can you
Yes,
hear
really.
me? Okay.
Perfect.
So let's dive right in, okay? So the subject today is authority does not create leadership. So when Napoleon Hill talks about the failure of leadership through putting a lot of emphasis on authority, I don't think he's talking about dictators or kings. I think he's more talking about everyday people, people like you and me, people who get a title and suddenly forget that leadership is service. Have you ever noticed that from somebody? All of a sudden, they got a little bit higher position at work and their behavior completely changed. I mean, I've noticed that with my directors when COVID came. A lot of them made a lot of money without extra effort. It's just the way it turned out. Some of them even bought a home, but ended up losing it because they didn't become they did not become the person they needed to become to sustain at that level. It's like they died and they went to heaven. That all of a sudden, they're earning an extra, $1,000 a week or whatever. So what's very important here in this subject that I really, really love is to understand that's not because you became a manager or a director or you became a parent or a president of a company that overnight you are entitled. You have this entitlement behavior, right? So I'm going to share through examples because Melanie's going to share with you the psychology behind it. So, but let me go here, okay? I remember I had this incredible, incredible salesperson on my team, and I'm going to give you a few examples. And as soon as she would have the highest sales average per party, like her customers just loved her. And as soon as she hit the director title, she became a tyrant. And one day I remember telling her, I said, Ramon, listen to me, girlfriend. I go, if you would treat your team the same way you treat a customer you want to sell to, a customer you want to date, a hostess that's hosting a party, sky would be only the beginning. But you know what? If she was not in a personal development program. So even when I said that to her, I read it in her demeanor, like in the way she was behaving. Don't you know who I am? I am now a director. I mean, she didn't say that to me, but I kind of read it. I got here, so I know what to do. That's often the mistake that a lot of people do when they go a little bit up the ladder. They take that new position, and instead of understanding that the higher up you go, the more you need to be a service to mankind, they take it the other way around. The further up you go, the more you have to serve me. I'm going to give you another example. Coming back to the director, all of a sudden that is making more money. All of a sudden that, she's got money in the bank account. They buy a home. She bought a home. Next thing you know, they lost the home. Now, did we lose the home because business wasn't working well anymore? No, they died and went to heaven. Like all of a sudden, the hairdresser once a week, the massage once a week, ordering restaurant every day or every other day. So understanding that you need to humble yourself, okay, more than anything, like the higher up you go, the more humble you have to be, the more to service the mankind you have to be. You will never sustain that level of success. And the last example I want to give you was with actually one of the presidents of my company, who was not happy with my intervention at a meeting, and I was entitled to a phone call. And as I listened to him rant over the phone, and I'm saying, whoa, 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 I'm his number one business leader. I'm the one generating over 50% of income, and he's talking to me this way. And all of a sudden, there was silence. And, I train on the first to speak is the first to lose. I say not a word. So all of a sudden he says to me, "And Maria?" And I said, "And what?" He goes, "Are you going to apologize?" Anyways, all I can tell you is 7 days later, um, what is it called? The service in a huge corporation that fires people, hires people, human resources, escorted him out of the building. So where I want to leave you here today with, okay, servanthood is what needs to be mastered as an individual. So no matter which titles you achieve, you will be able to maintain them. And as I was sharing the pre-podcast to Sylvain and Jean-Philippe, I said to them, you take somebody like me, and I'm able to recognize my faults and my qualities. I'm still doing and will always continue to do spend time building people. That's how I got started. That got me to the next level, the next level, the next level. It doesn't matter how much money I have in the bank account. It doesn't matter how much money I'm generating per month. What I'm here to do is service you so you can live your dream life. And this is what Napoleon is bringing in this one sentence in the book. I said to Melanie and Marie-Pierre, I said, literally, I could train here for 2.5 hours every single week on servanthood leadership. Okay, that's how powerful this segment is. Be of service to your spouses, be of service to your children, be of service to your community, no matter how high up the ladder you go. Now, to understand the science behind this, I'm going to leave you in the hands of Melanie Miller.
Thank you very much, Maria. And Maria's just introduced the ninth reason for failure in leadership, which Hill has called emphasis on the authority of leadership. Now, I'm going to talk about this in its literal sense and what science is behind it, because Hill is not suggesting that leaders should have no authority. Leaders require direction, decision, and accountability. But Hill is warning us against a leader who believes people should simply follow because of a title, position, or power that they hold. In other words, do it because I said so. History gives us many examples of this type of leadership. Perhaps the most extreme example is Adolf Hitler. Hitler exercised almost absolute authority. People obeyed because they were afraid not to. Fear became the primary tool of leadership. And while fear can create obedience, it does not create trust. It does not create loyalty, and it certainly does not create the best performance in people. Modern neuroscience explains to us why. When people operate in an environment of constant fear, the brain's threat detection system becomes highly active. The amygdala, a small almond shaped structure deep within the brain, is responsible for identifying danger and triggering survival responses. When leaders use fear, intimidation, threats, or excessive authority, the amygdala remains activated. Stress hormones such as cortisol and adrenaline increase. People enter a state of survival. Psychologically, this produces several effects. People become more cautious, more defensive, less creative, less willing to take risks, less willing to share ideas. Their focus shifts away from innovation and towards self protection. The brain begins asking, how do I avoid getting into trouble? Instead of, how do I contribute something valuable? People may obey, but they stop thinking independently. They stop challenging ideas. They stop bringing their best selves to the table. And over time, fear based leadership weakens both individuals and organization. Now, compare that to somebody like Nelson Mandela, a completely humble and beautiful person. Mandela spent 27 years in prison. He held no official position of power for most of that time. He had no title, no authority, no army, no ability to force people to follow him. And yet millions did. Why? Because his authority came from character rather than position. People followed him because they trusted him. They respected him. They believed in what he stood for. This is a very different form of leadership. It is authority that is granted rather than demanded, authority that is earned rather than imposed. And neuroscience tells us that people respond very differently to this kind of leader. When people feel safe, respected, and valued, the brain functions differently. Oxytocin, often called the trust hormone, increases, stress decreases. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for reasoning, creativity, planning, and problem solving, becomes more active. People feel psychologically safe. And when people feel psychologically safe, remarkable things happen. They share ideas, they collaborate, they innovate, they support one another, they become emotionally committed to a common vision. The brain begins asking, how can I help? How can I contribute? How can we succeed together? This is the environment that great leaders create. Perhaps the greatest lesson here is that power and influence are not the same thing. Power comes from position, influence comes from trust. Power can make people comply, influence makes people commit. Power can force behavior, influence changes hearts and minds. A leader who constantly reminds people of their authority often reveals insecurity. They need people to know who is in charge. They need people to obey. But truly great leaders rarely need to announce their authority. The people around them already know it, not because they fear them, but because they respect them. Perhaps this is why Hill considered an overemphasis on authority to be a cause of leadership failure, because the strongest leaders do not create followers through fear, they create followers through trust. They do not demand loyalty, they earn it. They do not force commitment, they inspire it. And ultimately, the leaders who leave the greatest legacy are not those who held the most power, they are the ones who influence the most hearts. Because true leadership is never about making people do what you want, it is about helping people want to achieve something greater. And now I'm going to leave you in the hands of Marie Pierre, who's going to help us determine what sort of leader we are. Over to you. Marie Pierre, you're muted.
Right.
There you go.
Hello. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the same thing. Okay. That's weird this morning. Okay. So, yes, the quiz this morning will help you see in different event that can happen in your daily life how you will react so you can see what is your leadership style in those moments, because the problem here is not having authority, because we all have in certain situation authority, because maybe you are a parent, or maybe you are a manager, maybe you are a director, maybe you are a teacher. So we have that authority because of the title that we have. But the problem is depending on the authority instead of make sure that we are inspiring people, developing people, and creating ownership, and not just create obedience. So let's start with the quiz this morning. So for each question, you can answer A, B, or C this morning. So let's start with question number 1. So you notice that people are not participating as much as you would like. So do you A, you increase accountability and pressure? B, you remind people of their responsibilities? Or C, you look for ways to increase ownership and engagement? So again, you want to answer honestly, not what sounds the best, but what you would do in this situation. Question number 2. Someone on your team makes a mistake. What do you do? A, I focus on correcting the mistake. B, I explain what should have happened. Or C, I use it as a coaching opportunity. Question number 3. You give instruction and people don't follow through. So what do? A, I become more firm. B, I repeat the instruction. Or C, I ask whether they truly understand the purpose behind the task. Question number 4. You have a new initiative and people are not excited about it. So what do? A, I emphasize on expectation. B, I explain why it's important. Or C, I help them connect emotionally to the vision. And question number 5. You have a person that is not performing at the level that you expect them. So what do? A, I become frustrated. B, I increase follow-up. Or C, I ask a better question. So did you get mostly A's, mostly B's, or mostly C's? So if you have mostly A, you are the authority-driven leader. So you care deeply about the results. So you want people to succeed. You want things done correctly. But when people don't perform, your natural tendency is to increase that pressure, control, supervision, or direction. So the challenge is that authority can create that short-term obedience, but rarely create long-term ownership. So people may do what you ask them because they have to do it, but they are not bringing their creativity, enthusiasm, and their full potential to their project. So your growth opportunity is to ask yourself, how can I help people want to do this instead of simply requiring them to do it? So the strongest leader will don't create dependence, but they will create that belief. Now, if you have mostly B's, you are in that transition leader. So you understand that leadership requires both structure and influence. So sometimes you coach, sometimes you direct, sometimes you inspire, sometimes you control. So you are in the middle of that journey. So the good news is that you already recognize that people grow best when they feel respected, supported, and involved. So your next level is spending less time correcting behavior and more time developing people. So ask yourself, am I solving today's problem, or am I helping this person become stronger for tomorrow? So because that leadership is not only about getting the result, but it's about growing people. And if you have mostly C's, now you are the influence leader. So you understand that people support what they help create. So you focus on trust before control. You focus on coaching before correcting, and you focus on developing people instead of simply directing them. So the result is that people often feel ownership around you. They feel heard, they feel respected, they feel capable. So because of that, they are more willing to take responsibility of their own growth. And your challenge is to continue now to balancing that influence with accountability. So great leaders are not soft, but they are supportive and demanding at the same time. So they hold high standard while helping people rise to meet them. So this is where it's really important, that influential leadership. So again, you want to ask yourself, when people aren't performing, do I increase that pressure or do I increase leadership? Because that authority can make people comply, but only influence can make people committed. So maybe you can have that challenge for the next 7 days. Okay, so for the next 7 days, you want to replace one comment with a conversation. So maybe you have that tendency to say you need to do this. So try replacing it by, what do you think is the best next step? or maybe it's you said because I said so. So maybe try, let me explain why this matters. Or maybe to say just do it, try how can I help you succeed. So what will happen when you change those comment with a conversation, and people will create uh, people will feel supported and they can grow. So and we need to understand that authority may get that compliance, but only influence will create that commitment, and commitment will build a lasting leadership. So on that, I wish you a beautiful day, a beautiful weekend, and we'll see you next week.